Hello and welcome to part 22 of my playthrough of Pathfinder Kingmaker in an informative style. Now, this episode is primarily going to be talking to the last two companions, Jaethal and Linzi, but I just thought I would make the most of our 2 hours and 12 days of freedom from the responsibilities of a Baron to do one more encounter, just squeezing it in. And that encounter has been one I've actually been avoiding, but since we've got a bit of time, and it doesn't matter if we go all out in it, I thought I would just do this one, at the beginning of this episode, because generally, it's a tricky encounter, but it's also worth getting out of the way. So this is going to take a total of about 22 hours in total to get there, get back, and fight. And I've brought Octavia because she is kind of key to our strategy here. In that we're going to be using some of her ray spells, even though our enemy is not as vulnerable to them as we might consider. So let's just have a little look before we aggro it. We've got a Level 8 Outsider, Large Water Elemental, 24 Strength, 18 Dex, 21 Con. It's only worth 45 experience points, but this is a tough enemy. So we're going to go all out, and hopefully the cat will die first.
Adventures are exciting.
And after that, we'll have been able to take it down in that time. We're going to make Octavia small, something we haven't been doing very much of, because that will increase her accuracy with her rays, with no loss of damage. We're going to make Valerie big, which again is relatively unusual. And then we're going to go ahead and cast up.
It's time to act.
You can buff the cat with Cat's Grace, which will increase both its armor class and damage and to hit. So it's the whole works.
And Linzi was called forth.
So do we have anything else that might help? Not.
Adventures.
I am yours to command.
Blur. Shield of Faith. Shield of Faith. Full strength. Full strength. Okay.
I'll share my path.
There we go. Cat.
What's the holdup?
So the idea is we can hit it with
This spell's not supposed to work like
a
that.
scorching ray from afar
Who will prevail? Does it
for a whole 13 damage. But we should be able to get another one in.
This didn't work. I must be doing it wrong.
Stand down.
Linzi.
This will hurt. Consider me provoked.
We can just check. We don't know what its abilities are. Yeah, but we're gonna hope
This didn't work.
actually
I must
that
be
we
doing
can
it wrong.
repent?
take it down here if we don't miss. And it's shifted to attacking Valerie, which is a bit of a pain. But snowball's hitting. Yeah, so one more round. And there we go. Easy peasy. Or it looked easy. But actually that's a really dangerous enemy. And I did try it out earlier in my playthrough to find that It was
dangers
much
don't
harder
frighten me.
than I had anticipated, so I kind of forgotten quite how difficult that was. But there's nothing else on this map. It's a bit dull, you know. It's kind of strikes a bit of filler. The items we picked up here. Did we pick them up? Because it should have been potion and the like. Let me just double check. Off this corpse here. It's obviously wandered off. Yeah, we did get them. So, yeah. A scroll of, I believe, remove blindness. So that's it. So we're going to go back to Oleg's and we'll just have a chat to Jaethal and Linzi and learn a bit about their backstories, and I'll talk a bit about them. You'll notice that I've always got Linzi with me. One of my favourite characters, and you know, game wouldn't be complete without having Linzi along with you, since she is the one writing your journal.
I need to catch my breath.
Anyway, there we go. And I'll just show off our time as well, so we can see that we really are pushing it to the limit. But we might as well to make the most of that time. So 61 days and 8 hours. We can even have a nap before we need to go. So first off, we'll talk to Jaethal. Jaethal, here you are. And of course, Jaethal is an elf, and as we learned in the prologue, in episode 1 of this series, Jaethal is undead. So it's a great portrait, but yeah, she is an undead elf. And bear in mind that this is perhaps not alignment congruent here, keeping Jaethal around. A true neutral good playthrough might just tell her to go away. But I want to play through her storyline, and I don't think she's as bad as she makes out, so yeah. Which we're immediately going to throw cold water on because of learning a bit about her backstory and what she did. Anyway, I'd like to hear your story. And yes, so she was exiled for killing. She died, and she was raised by Urgathoa's gift. Urgathoa, the goddess of undead, and also physical excess. It's a really weird juxtaposition that that Urgathoa is like the sort of goddess of excess and pleasure from excess, while simultaneously being the goddess of the undead. And if you're dead, you don't get enjoyment from the things you got enjoyment from when you were alive. So yes, Urgathoa, who escaped Pharasma's boneyard, the first to ever do so. So, who were you before you were exiled? So she was like a judge in Kyonin. This is the elven nation, the only elven nation. Isolationist, you know, consumed by ennui, but as Jaethal was. So yes, she tried and delivered cases over several hundred years, so she's old. Anyway, who did you kill and why? And this is the crux of what was going on. Pretty unpleasant. Yes. So she killed 4 of her family. And you could tell she wants to talk about why she did it. And it is about that ennui, that listlessness that comes from living so long, that, you know, it's almost like the elven equivalent of the gnomish bleaching, that they've lost interest in everything because you just done it so much and for so long. So dust of years and jaded repetition, dust goes thicker, and erstwhile joys cease to excite and cloy as a dish you've tasted 1,000 times. And she searched for a way to avoid this fate, and she found a way. Sorry, that was me just sneezing off mic. Yeah, she found a way in these ancient texts of Urgathoa, but the ritual required the blood of her kin, and that by carrying out this ritual and by killing a family member, she could reawaken, this enjoyment, but reawaken it to an even greater extent, and it's a ritual that's very fitting with Urgathoa, with her remit, her domain. Well, not domain, but her remit as a goddess. And she killed, and it was, essentially addictive, and she couldn't, even where so if you read between the lines, even when her family was suspicious, she carried on doing it. And we can just have a look at these alignment based decisions. So the lawful good, i.e., it was bad and fair punishment for crimes, whereas the neutral good is far more, and this is Alice's alignment, is a moral, moral condemnation, not simply, or it's both. It's a more emotional moral condemnation rather than the lawful good, which is both a legal and a moral condemnation, but it doesn't have this sort of, that's abominable. It's focusing on the crime. Neutral, and this really is true neutral, as in, what would an animal, in the wilderness think to this? Well, nothing. It's irrelevant to them. And neutral evil, the self-centered sort of lives of others shouldn't outweigh our own. And this lawful evil is, I think it's a bit of a ham-fisted lawful evil option, but this sort of keeping within the bounds of law and decency. Like, you should have done it legally. Anyway, let's pick the neutral good. And, Jaethal, because she's old, because she's seen it all before, she just doesn't really care about what our opinion is. We can ask, do you have family in Kernin? Anyone who's dear to you? And she's just said that she killed them. But if we click this, she will just mention her daughter, which is important going forward. She quite likes her daughter, even if she refers to her in a really quite unpleasant manner. And we want to know how come she was exiled, because she's clearly a multi-murderer. So yeah, and she discusses how as an elf being exiled is horrible because of the issues surrounding elves being in a very concentrated population in one particular region, living a long time. The jadedness and the dissatisfaction that comes with that, being exiled is very serious. Even I, who despises its hypocrisy, must admit as much, because there's nowhere else for elves where they can actually, be among other elves. So and of course she's undead, and that's a really important question, isn't it? So how did you die, and what happened after? I don't remember my death. I was stunned by the sentence of exile, and I admit I showed weakness. I wandered aimless and absorbed in despair, without concern for my safety or substance. And then, I remember desolate rocks, a stone I lay upon, a convulsion, passing not only through my whole body, but through my soul. Then I awakened, cold, calm, my body overwhelmed with strength, but haunted by a strange internal silence. There were bloody prints of bone feet on the stone next to me, the signs of the goddess. A battle scythe lay nearby. That was the first and last time I heard Urgathoa's voice. She spoke but 3 words. Hail the Inquisitor. That is all. She has neither addressed me, nor answered my pleas ever since. And so she was made an inquisitor and spoken to directly by one of Golarian's gods, which is relatively rare, or comparatively, rare when you look across the entire population of Golarion, and spoken to by an evil deity, and not just that, but made into an inquisitor, so effectively an enforcer of that God's will. So not a cleric, not granted powers through worship, but sort of appointed this inquisitor. And she could put her new powers to the test because her kin had been tracking her down, or some of them anyway. And she in order to escape being chased down, she ended up in the mansion where we met her, as a offering her services to Jamandi and to the Sword Lords. So tell us about your birthplace. I hope you do not ask from idle curiosity. That it's very isolationist. So most visitors, non-elves, can only go to Greengold, this port city, opener city of Conan. And she discusses it in quite unpleasant terms. She gives an impression of elves that they are not particularly fond of half-elves, half-breeds, and the short-lived, i.e., humans and all other short-lived races. She refers to it as one might go to a wild beast show. Yes. And Conan is a mixture of grandeur and the sad remains of ancient glory. The ruins of ancient monuments and fountains, it's serene, but also profoundly, sad, if that makes sense. Yeah. And this bit here, it just gives us a bit more sense about what it's actually like to be an elf. Daily life is filled with the efforts of 100-year-old infants seeking worthy goals, and 1,000-year-old stony cynics entertaining themselves howsoever they can. That is all. It's scarcely worth mentioning that even this gloom is far more tempting than anything one finds in the lands of the short-lived. So even though, living among elves is a profoundly depressing, or at least, not bleak, but just, how would you say? Yeah, I think I've used the word ennui a lot, but that sort of listlessness and lack of purpose over the course of a very long life. But even that is better than leaving Conan and being out amongst the much shorter lived. Anyway, thanks, Jaethal. We're going to ask her what it's like to be undead, and we can basically ask some functional questions like this one: how do healing spells, prayers, and potions affect you? And basically, because undead are beings of negative energy, not positive energy, healing is positive energy conjured from the positive energy plane, and so obviously that damages beings of negative energy. So if you're playing Jaethal, you need a source of inflict wounds spells, which she can gain as an inquisitor, and that will heal her. You don't need to sleep. Basically, no, but please don't put me for extra jobs. And do you regret not being alive anymore? And essentially, this is a big question. And at the beginning of talking to Jaethal, I alluded to this, discussed it, that this is the contradiction of Urgathoa here. That two desires led me through life: to feel pleasure time and time again, and to achieve perfection. Unlife brought me closer to the second. I'm changeless, torn from time, the chaos of the world, and even the soul circle have no power over me. but everything comes with a price. Most things that brought me pleasure in life are meaningless to me now. How can I decide what is better? So, everything that led her to commit those murders, is sort of stripped away from her by being undead. And we can pick neutral good. No purpose to living only for yourself makes life and unlife equally senseless. Or a bright life full of pleasure is better than unlife, though eternal. And this chaotic evil, you become powerful, and that's all that matters. It's much better than the life of ordinary mortals. So I think these are nice. This is actually nice alignment based choices. In that, chaotic neutral, that is very much live for oneself, but where's the enjoyment if you're dead? Whereas this is, all that matters is what you've gained. Forget about what you've lost. Anyway, we're gonna pick the neutral good option here. And she just goes, agreed, and she yawns. Like, yeah. We can ask her about carnal pleasures, but basically that's a no. As she is undead, just as she doesn't need to eat, and she doesn't get anything from drinking wine. And I'm sure, if you're thinking, here is an individual, an undead elf, an inquisitor of Urgathoa. What on earth does that mean? So tell us about your goddess. And she's like, as she sort of said in her how she became undead, she doesn't actually know. She was not a worshipper of Urgathoa. She was a respecter and a happy to use rituals, but not a cleric of Urgathoa. And so, what do you know of Urgathoa herself? She gives us this little lore dump. That Urgathoa so loved the pleasure of life that she refused to die. Or when she died, she refused to remain dead and came back. But it doesn't explain how via escaping Pharasma's boneyard, she became a goddess. And, since then she has protected all who submit their souls to pleasure and passion, paying no heed to worn-out morals and dictates of law. And so what does it mean to be an inquisitor of Urgathoa? This is more complicated than it seems. So she's a zealous defender of the faith in Urgathoa, at the hand of the goddess in mundane affairs. But she doesn't know how she's meant to do that. She's received these powers, but she has no instructions. And so her main drive is to find out why. To find out why she's got these powers, what is actually wanted of her. And it's all a big mystery at the moment. And so, obviously she's gained through this gift, or curse, as you might say it. She's gained faith, as one would have to. So she does pray to Urgathoa, even if she doesn't seem to receive any communication. And what does Urgathoa require of her followers? To enjoy, to taste exquisite dishes, etc., etc. But, Jaethal can't do any of that, because she's dead. And does Urgathoa feud with other gods? Basically, Urgathoa's got no dislike of any other gods, but other gods don't like her. So Pharasma really dislikes the undead. So as the sort of goddess of death and cycles and rebirth, Pharasma hates the undead more than pretty much anything else. And the clergy and inquisitors and paladins, one would suppose, of Pharasma are, I guess you'd say, religious in their destruction of the undead. So, and Pharasma herself hates the undead. If you play Wrath of the Righteous, you get some nice interactions with picking deities if you go the lich path. So Urgather and Pharasma play a role there in sort of, I guess, reactivity in the game. And of course Saren Ray, Tristian, priest of Saren Ray, that she wants to heal Urgather, and Jaethal finds that laughable. Anyway, enough about that. So one final option, what made you want to follow me? And, curiosity, need for understanding, what do I do? And I suppose our meeting was no mere accident. Besides, I imagine that several Kionin assassins still pursue me. So, she's a very troubled individual. Like, she's deeply unpleasant, but, she's filled with confusion and doubt, I guess. If I was her, I'd be kind of wondering what I was doing in my life. Yeah. Anyway, why do these assassins follow you? And she doesn't know, because, her punishment was exile, and it's not customary for, if you've been, a sentence was exile, it's not customary to send extrajudicial murderers out as well. And my attack shouted something about threat and blood. I suppose they're a splinter group of feeble-minded zealots, or someone on a quest for personal revenge. Thank you and farewell! ! That's it. That's Jaethal there.
I'll
And
share my path.
as I was saying, as an undead, and if we just have a little look, I haven't leveled her up, but as a neutral evil inquisitor of Urgather, one might consider ditching her. There we go. But we're going to keep her around for completionist sake. So our last person to talk to is Linzi, but also you'll notice just hidden here we've got Kressle.
Hi there, stranger. I'm Irina, Svetlana's sister. I just arrived recently.
Yeah, so why the masquerade?
It's just, I want to start a new life, to forget everything from before, even my old name.
See, you're settling in just fine?
I won't be here long, just enough to help Svetlana with her work around the post. I owe her that much. Then I'll be on my way. Still haven't decided where to go, though.
And where's the rest of the Stag Lord's gang?
Right after battle in the Stag Lord's fortress, Akiros just dissolved, like morning fog. I heard him mumble something about repaying old debts as he left. He's no fool. I'd guess he won't show his face in the Stolen Lands again. Too many people recognize him for being the Stag Lord's right hand. The remnants of the gang all scattered. I'd wager someone's already announced himself as the new Stag Lord and got a knife in the liver from some other wannabe heir.
So yeah, it's nice to see that she's showed up back here. She's our neutral good approach to Kressle has paid dividends. She's reunited with Svetlana. It's great. Yes, so finally, let's chat to Linzi. Give me one moment. Linzi, take off that silly hat.
You'll have to show me how to use it first.
There we go. Right. Let's have a chat. So, yeah, in case you hadn't guessed, Linzi is a halfling, and Linzi is a bard. And she is writing our story. How that manifests in game is she writes the journal. So you'll note, and the chapter transitions. So you'll notice they are in her voice, even if they aren't actually voiced. So yeah, hi Linzi. So tell me about yourself, and where are you from? So she was born in Gout, same as Jod was. If you watched my previous video where I went through Jod's dialogue, the cleric of Erastil. Linzi's also from there, and from a tiny village of halflings, effectively. Yeah. So who is yours? She mentions her teacher, and she'd still be there if it weren't for her teacher. So who was that? He was a true saint. Was once an important person in the capital at the Church of Shellin. So we know Shellin from our discussions with Valerie, the once destined to be a paladin or a cleric of Shellin, and rejected it all due to for strong personal conviction reasons. So yes, Linzi is a worshipper of Shellin here. So yeah, and this former member of the Church of Shellin tried to set up a school. Most of the people didn't want book learning, but he did manage to teach Linzi, how to read, how to write, poems, legends, and he mentions the Archknights of Aviston. This is bit of a story in Galarian lore, and also he gave a magic ring so that Shellin would protect me from harm. And if we just, before we do the rest of the dialogue, if we just have a look at Linzi, you will see. There we go. Shellin's embrace prevents her from dying and teleports her to a safe location should she fall in battle. So that's good, isn't it? Linzi cannot actually die, meaning that if she dies, she shows back up here or in the capital, which is really handy. And that is because if she died, then it wouldn't make sense for her to be writing the diary, the journal, or to have her voice in the voiceovers, or to have her show up in cutscenes, or a lot of the late game stuff. So she's got an artifact that keeps her alive, similar to in Baldur's Gate 2. Imoen wore a belt in the first dungeon, meaning that she couldn't die because she appears in that cutscene after you escape Irenicus's dungeon, which wouldn't make much sense if she was dead. Likewise, Tristian upstairs also cannot die and gets teleported by Sarenrae back here or back to your capital. So let's learn a bit about the Archknights of Aviston, and yes, the most epic stories in the history of stories. Basically, she just goes, go read it. This is Camelot style, King Arthur, high chivalry. So, how did you become a bard, Linzi? Ugh, that is a wall of text. I'll summarize it. She ran away with Tessie the Quill, traveling book peddler, who she really pressed her to take with her. And together they went to Brevoy, where we initially started out. Rest of us in Brevoy to the north and northeast. Taldor, mighty empire of Taldor, and Ustalav. Yes. So a lot of places, and then she ended up in the Academy of Grand Arts in Pitax, which is to our west, part of the River Kingdoms as well, of which the Stolen Lands is part as well, but more established as a kingdom. And so she enrolled in this Academy of Grand Arts to worship Shellin, and basically yes, as I'm sure many bards do, calls us the world as it should be rather than the world as it is, which is a very nice thought, I guess. And so tell us about Pitax. I love Pitax, even though they kicked me out. So, what is life like in Pitax? And it's always been a huge nest of thieves, bandits, river pilots, smugglers, fencers, card sharps, and so on, before King Iraveti rose to power. And Iraveti, didn't want to just be another bandit with a crown, and so he wanted to, gain legitimacy by his sponsorship of the arts, and so he built this, new bard school, effectively, and the very best ones refused to go, but he got what he wanted anyway. So he tried to get lots of teachers and the like to come here. But I think Linzi sums it up well, that if Pitax was once just a booze barn for thieves, now it's a cabaret. So it hasn't shaken off its origins. What do you know of King Iravetti? He won his crown in a game of cards. He's incredibly unimaginably, fantastically decadent and conceited, but he has a knack for making money. And he's aiming very high, dressing up like a male Callistria with a golden codpiece. Yeah, so decadent, or not bored decadence, but exuberant decadence, I guess. Not jaded decadence like, Jaethal is talking about, but exuberance. And he likes to sing. Tell me about the academy you studied at. He's got no taste. He wants loud art, bright, grandiose, and glorifying himself. And he kicks out people that don't do what he wants. And he sacked a masterful flute player and instead ordered them to open a kettle drum class. Yes, and King Iravetti personally saw that Linzi was expelled for an innocent limerick. So I think that's quite cool. Not many people were personally expelled from school by a king, but Linzi's one of them. And would you like to go back? Yes, but get rid of the professors. If my art was to Iravetti's liking, then I would have reason to be ashamed. And basically, it's all lick spittles, no talent there. So I think this does a really good job of developing Linzi's character. So anyway, let's ask about something else. So tell us. We'll ask about the ring. We know about that from elsewhere, but basically that she's just saying it'll teleport her back here for plot reasons. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your book, Linzi? And you're writing my story, aren't you? I'm writing the whole truth just as it happened. No glory, no story. So why are you writing it? What's the point? And she attended a literature course. And a person is a storytelling animal. And basically, stories are important, and that is why I am writing a book. We can say her command of language isn't very good, and she'll just say, I know, but I'm getting better. And then we can print a second edition, revised and corrected. And it's full of inconsistencies. And that's because she's dramatized the whole thing by taking artistic license, even though she's here in time. But in the end, you're the heroine of the book. I'm just the storyteller. Think of it as a general picture. Anyway, what kind of character is Alice? So Linzi also is put forward as having, despite being incredibly confident, in the way she presents to the world. She's a little bit nervous about meeting us, but that was allayed because we're really nice and we're always trying to do the right thing, and sometimes you follow the rules and sometimes you make up your own. Your actions are hard to predict. That's what makes you so interesting to read about. And how do you feel about me reading your work in progress? Yes, you can read them. And that is basically, read the journal if you want to see what Linzi's writing. I'll show a couple of examples because I haven't really, I'm not doing not factoring in the journal very much, but it's worth looking just because you can get really into it. You can really enjoy, the writer of Linzi writing the journal, if that makes sense. And we almost get a full spectrum of alignment choices, down to the threats and the I like this as a lawful evil option. I'd rather have a say in how my biography turns out. You know, that is a very lawful evil option. Yeah, and this chaotic evil, like, write what you say or I'll kill you. That is pretty chaotic evil. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to pick chaotic good. Write what you want. I doubt you would defame me, or for that matter, overpraise. And there we go. And so finally, we can just ask her about her friendship with Tessie the Quill, the travelling book peddler. And yeah, which thanks to her, she managed to get out of her village. But she just sort of clung to her in that journey around until she enrolled in the Pitax Academy of Arts. We can tell Linzi to go away, but she doesn't. You know, you literally cannot get rid of her because of, you know, plot reasons like consistency of the journal. There's no alternative, and because the writers have gone to all that effort of writing the journal in Linzi's voice, it just wouldn't make sense to still have the journal written in Linzi's voice unless she was sort of like following you around, you know, and hiding from you. Anyway, I have to go now, and yeah, don't leave without me. Don't worry, Linzi, we'll take you with us everywhere. So that is it for dialogue. And so I'm gonna pause the video now, and we're basically gonna start chapter 2 in the next video. So see you then.